The crystal chandeliers of the Grand Hyatt in Manhattan shimmered like frozen rain. But the air around me felt like ice. It was my sister-in-law, Chloe's, 30th birthday gala. The guest list was a who's who of New York's elite. Waiters in white gloves glided through the ballroom, serving vintage champagne that cost more per bottle than my monthly rent. "Be a dear, Maya, and take these empty flutes to the tray," Chloe said. Her voice, dripping with a sugary condescension that made my skin crawl. She didn't hand them to me. She placed them in my hands, as if I were a piece of furniture. "Your hands are empty anyway. You might as well make yourself useful since you're not exactly contributing to the social atmosphere." Laughter rippled through the inner circle. My brother, Ethan, adjusted his $5,000 tuxedo and chuckled. "Careful, Chloe, if you give her too much to do. She start complaining about her artistic burnout again. I am 26 years old. I've lived with the Harrisons since I was 4. After my parents died in a tragic car accident. My uncle, Richard Harrison, a titan of the shipping industry, took me in. But I wasn't a daughter. I was a shadow. While Ethan and Chloe went to Ivy League schools and spent summers in the Hamptons, I was given the bare minimum, constantly reminded that I was a charity case, living on their generosity. I'm actually quite busy with my freelance design work. "Ethan," I said, my voice trembling despite my effort to stay calm. "Design work? You mean making logos for $50 on the internet?" Ethan sneered. "Let's be real, Maya, without Dad's roof over your head, you'd be on the street. Try to show some gratitude for once." The humiliation was a dull ache I had grown used to. But tonight, they were pushing further. As the party wound down, the event coordinator approached our table with the final bill for the gala. Richard looked at the leather folder, then slid it across the white linen tablecloth toward me. "What is this, Uncle Richard?" I asked, a pit forming in my stomach. "The bill, Maya," Richard said calmly, sipping his scotch. "It's time you started paying your way. We've calculated the rent and living expenses. We've covered for you over the last 22 years. Concertes $85. Party your first installment toward that debt. $85. I gasped, my entire savings, the money I had painstakingly clawed together for 5 years to finally move out, was exactly $90,000 you want me to pay for Chloe's birthday party. It's about character, Maya, Chloe chirped, leaning in. You're always taking the clothes you're wearing, the food you eat. It's all ours. Don't be so selfish. Dozens of socialites were watching. I felt the heat rise in my neck. To avoid a scene and out of a desperate, lingering hope that, if I just did what they asked, they might finally love me, I took out my debit card. My hand shook as I swiped it. In one click, my future was deleted. Suddenly, a sharp rap of a cane against the floor silenced the table. Grandmother Eleanor, the true matriarch of the Harrison fortune, stood up. At 82 shillings. She had been sitting at the end of the table all night, silent, her sharp gray eyes observing every jab, every insult, and finally, the theft of my savings. Sit down, Richard, Eleanor commanded. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of a mountain. Mother, we were just, Richard started. I said sit down. She snapped. She turned her gaze to Ethan and Chloe, who suddenly looked like scolded toddlers. I have sat in silence for 2 decades watching. Eutermaisi housing tour. Playground for bullies. I have watched you treat this girl your own blood by choice, and law worse than the help. Grandma, it was just a joke, Chloe stammered. A joke? You just stole her life savings to pay for your vanity, Eleanor said. Stepping toward me, she placed a hand on my shoulder. It was the first time in years I had felt a touch that wasn't meant to push or pull. I've spent the last few months making a few phone calls. And I've made a decision. The room went deathly silent. Everyone knew Eleanor controlled the trust funds that fueled their lifestyles. I am dying, Eleanor stated. The table gasped. I have stage 4 lung cancer. I have months, maybe weeks, and I will not leave my legacy to a pack of wolves. She pulled a thick envelope from her clutch. This is my new will, signed and notarized yesterday. Richard, you are removed as CEO of Harrison Holdings. Ethan, your trust fund is dissolved. Chloe, the penthouse in Soho and the Hampton House. They are no longer yours. You can't do that. Richard roared, standing up. I built that company. No, your father built it. And I own 60% of the shares, Eleanor said coldly. As of this moment, everything, the properties, the accounts, the controlling interest in the firm is being placed into a trust for Maya. The explosion was instant. Chloe began to scream, calling me a manipulative leech. Ethan tried to snatch the envelope, but Eleanor's security detail stepped forward, blocking him. There is more, Eleanor said, her eyes burning with a righteous fury. Maya, I went into the old records. When your parents died, they left you a life insurance policy and a private inheritance of $15,000. Your uncle was the executor. He told the courts the money was lost in bad investments. But I found the paper trail. He used your inheritance to save his company during the 2008 crash. He didn't take you in out of the goodness of his heart. He stole your birthright to fund his own failures. I looked at Richard. His face had gone from red to a ghostly, sickly white. He couldn't look me in the eye. You stole my parents' money? I whispered. The tears finally broke. You made me feel like a beggar in my own home while you were spending my father's legacy. Maya, listen, Richard started, his voice cracking. No, I said, standing tall for the first time in my life. I turned to the waiter, who was still holding the bill folder. Refund the $85,000 to my card immediately. And charge it to Mr. Harrison's personal account we're leaving. Eleanor said, taking my arm. Thomas is waiting with the car. Richard, you have 48 hours to vacate the estate. I suggest you start looking for a rental. I hear the suburbs are lovely this time of year. As we walked out of the ballroom, the silence of the crowd was deafening. Behind us, I could hear Chloe sobbing and Ethan shouting at his father. The gilded cage had finally shattered. Outside, the cool New York night air felt like a rebirth. We climbed into the back of the black town car. What happens now, Grandma? I asked, feeling the sheer weight of billions of dollars and a crumbling family. Now, Eleanor said, squeezing my hand, we go to my lawyers. We ensure that they can never touch you again. And then, my dear, You are going to show the world what a real Harrison looks like. I looked out the window at the blurred lights of the city. I was no longer the charity case. I was the owner of the empire. And for the first time in 22 years, I was finally home.